Before I tell you what happened on the worst Thanksgiving of my life, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel and hit that like button. Your support means everything to me, and I read every single comment. Let me know where you're watching from, because this story about family betrayal could happen anywhere, to anyone. I'm Margaret Foster, 67 years old, and I've been a widow for 3 years. My husband Richard and I raised our only son David with everything we had. We saved for his college education, helped him with his first apartment, and gave him the down payment for his starter home. When Richard passed away from a sudden heart attack, David promised me I'd never be alone. He said I was his priority, that family came first, and that his home would always be my home. That promise lasted exactly 2 years and 4 months, until the Thanksgiving when his wife Jessica threw a dinner plate at my head and called me a selfish burden in front of their entire family. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how I ended up in that kitchen, bleeding from my forehead, while my daughter-in-law screamed that I had ruined her life. The trouble started 6 months after Richard died. David had been married to Jessica for 5 years at that point, and we'd always had what I thought was a pleasant relationship. She was polite, remembered my birthday, asked about my book club meetings. Nothing warm exactly, but cordial, respectful, or so I believed. After Richard's funeral, David insisted I shouldn't live alone in our big house anymore. "Margaret, it's too much for you," he said, holding my hand in his father's study. "All those memories, all that empty space. Come stay with us for a while, just until you figure out what you want to do next." Jessica stood in the doorway during this conversation, and I remember looking at her face for approval. She smiled and nodded. "Of course, Margaret. We have that spare bedroom. It'll be nice to have you close." I should have noticed that her smile didn't reach her eyes. I should have paid attention to how quickly she left the room after agreeing. But I was drowning in grief, and my son's offer felt like a life raft. I moved into their spare bedroom 3 weeks later. The room was small but adequate, with a single bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out onto their backyard. David helped me bring over some of my personal belongings: photos of Richard, my favorite reading chair, boxes of books. Jessica watched from the hallway, arms crossed, as we carried things upstairs. "How long do you think you'll stay?" she asked casually, as David went back down for another load. "Oh, just a few months," I assured her. "Just until I can sort through everything at the house and decide whether to sell or downsize." "Months," she repeated, her voice flat. "Right. The first month was fine. I tried to make myself useful. I did my own laundry, kept my room tidy, and offered to help with dinner preparations. Jessica usually declined, saying she had her routine and didn't want to mess it up. I understood. It was her kitchen after all. But by the second month, I noticed changes. Jessica stopped making eye contact with me. When I entered a room, she'd find a reason to leave. If I was watching television in the living room, she'd take her laptop to the bedroom. If I was reading in the backyard, she'd suddenly remember she needed to run errands. "David, I don't think Jessica is comfortable with me here," I told my son one evening when she'd gone upstairs early, claiming a headache. "Mom, you're imagining things," he replied, not looking up from his phone. "Jessica's just stressed with work. It has nothing to do with you. But maybe I should start looking for my own place sooner." David finally looked at me, his expression pained. "Do you want to leave?" "No, but I don't want to be a burden either." "You're not a burden. You're my mother. This is your home now." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that I deserved to be there, that I wasn't imposing. But Jessica's behavior told a different story. By month 3, the passive aggression became impossible to ignore. Jessica started making comments about the grocery bill. "Margaret, you went through that entire package of coffee already?" she'd say, looking in the pantry. "That was supposed to last us 2 weeks. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. I'll buy my own coffee, or the water usage." "Jessica, are you taking hour-long showers again?" David asked one morning at breakfast. "That's not me," Jessica replied, glancing pointedly at me. "Some people don't understand that water isn't free." "Mom takes normal showers," David defended me, but I could see the seed of doubt planted in his mind. I started timing my showers, 10 minutes maximum. I bought my own groceries and kept them separate. I tried to make myself as invisible as possible in their home, but it wasn't enough. The real problems started 4 months into my stay. Jessica began having loud phone conversations with her mother, making sure I could hear every word. "I know, Mom. I never signed up for this. I feel like a guest in my own home. She's always there. Always. I can't even walk around in my pajamas anymore without worrying about running into her." When I tried to address it directly, Jessica denied everything. "Margaret, you're being paranoid," she said, her voice sticky sweet. "I love having you here." "Why would you think otherwise? Because you just told your mother you feel like a guest in your own home." I was on the phone with my friend Sarah, not my mother. And I was talking about my sister's mother-in-law, not you. You misheard. I knew what I'd heard, but David believed Jessica's explanations every time. He wanted to believe them. It was easier than confronting his wife about her treatment of his mother. By month 5, Jessica stopped pretending. She'd make plans for her and David without including me, even for family. Dinners, she'd reorganize shared spaces and put my things in closets or corners. Once, I came home from a doctor's appointment to find she'd removed the photos of Richard I'd placed on the living room bookshelf. "They made the room look cluttered," she explained. "I put them in your bedroom where you can enjoy them privately." "Those are photos of David's father," I said, my voice shaking. "They belong in the family spaces. This isn't your house, Margaret. It's mine and David's. Your bedroom is your space. The rest of the house is ours." I went to my room and cried for the first time since moving in, not just for myself, but for Richard, who would have been devastated to see his son allowing this treatment. When I told David about the photos that evening, he sighed heavily. "Mom, can't you just compromise? Jessica likes a minimalist aesthetic. It's not personal. Your father's photos are not clutter." "I know, but pick your battles. Is this really worth fighting about?" That's when I realized David was never going to stand up for me. He'd chosen his wife, and I was expected to simply accept whatever treatment she decided to dish out. Month 6 brought the Thanksgiving incident, but the weeks leading up to it were their own special nightmare. Jessica started bringing up my departure in every conversation. "Margaret, have you thought about what you're doing for Christmas? Because David and I are planning a trip, just the 2 of us." "Margaret, I saw some nice senior living communities advertised. Want me to send you the links?" "Margaret, how much longer do you think you'll need to stay? It's been half a year now." I'd been quietly looking at apartments, but everything in my budget was in unsafe neighborhoods or too far from David. My fixed income from Richard's pension and Social Security didn't go as far as it once did. The housing market had exploded since we'd bought our home 40 years ago. Jessica knew this. She'd made comments about my financial situation before, thinly veiled as concern. It must be hard living on a fixed income. I don't know how people manage. David and I are so fortunate that we both have good careers. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Jessica called a family meeting. She, David, and I sat in their living room. She had a notepad and pen, like this was a business negotiation. "Margaret, we need to discuss your living situation," she began. This was supposed to be temporary, but it's been 6 months. We need a concrete departure date. I've been looking at places. It's just taking time to find something suitable. How much more time? David asked, and my heart sank. He was on her side. Completely. I don't know. Another few months, maybe. Unacceptable, Jessica said flatly. We need our space back. We want to start a family, and we can't do that with you living here. This was news to me. David, you're trying for a baby? He wouldn't meet my eyes. We've been thinking about it. That's wonderful, I said, trying to sound enthusiastic. Despite the clear message, I understand. I'll try to speed up my search. Jessica wasn't done, and in the meantime, we need some ground rules. First, you need to start paying rent, $800 a month. I felt like I'd been slapped. Rent? You're living here, using our utilities, eating our food. Yes, rent. Jessica, that's more than reasonable for this area, David added. My pension is $200 a month. After rent, I'd have $400 for everything else. Then you'll need to find somewhere cheaper, Jessica said with a shrug, or get a job. I'm 67 years old. Mom, there are lots of places that hire seniors. Grocery stores, retail, that kind of thing. I stared at my son, the boy I'd raised, who I'd worked 2 jobs to put through college, was suggesting I bag groceries to afford living in his spare bedroom. When do you need the first payment? I asked quietly. November 1st, Jessica answered. That gives you a week. I withdrew money from my emergency savings, the account Richard had insisted we maintain for true emergencies. I handed Jessica a check for $800 on November 1st. She took it without thanking me and deposited it the same day. The week before Thanksgiving, Jessica informed me that I'd be cooking the turkey and all the sides. I'm hosting 12 people, and I can't do it all myself, she announced. Since you're living here, you need to contribute. Of course I'll help, I agreed. No, not help. Do. I'm making the desserts. You're doing everything else. Jessica, 12 people is a lot. I can handle the turkey and a few sides, but... Margaret, I'm not asking. You'll do the cooking, or you can spend Thanksgiving alone in your room. I'll pay for the groceries. That was my first mistake. I should have refused. I should have said no, packed my things, and left that night, even if it meant staying in a motel. But where would I go? I had nowhere else. I spent 3 days preparing. I bought a 20-pound turkey, made homemade cranberry sauce, prepared green bean casserole, roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes, stuffing, dinner rolls. Jessica watched me work in her kitchen with critical eyes. You're using too much butter. You're not seasoning that enough. Is that organic turkey? I specifically said organic. She hadn't specified anything, but I apologized and said I'd pay the difference. Thanksgiving morning arrived. I'd been up since 5 a.m. getting the turkey in the oven, preparing sides, setting the table. Jessica came downstairs at 9, looked at everything I'd done, and said, "The table looks wrong." I spent another hour resetting it to her specifications. David's sister Karen arrived first with her husband Tom and their 2 teenagers. Karen hugged me tight. "Margaret, how are you holding up? It must be so strange being here instead of your own home on Thanksgiving." "I'm managing," I said, not wanting to burden her with the truth. "How have you been?" We chatted while I finished in the kitchen. Karen offered to help, but Jessica intercepted. "Margaret has it. Under control. Come sit, Karen. Let me get you some wine." More guests arrived. Jessica's parents, whom I'd met only a handful of times. Her sister and brother with their families. The house filled with noise and laughter. I stayed in the kitchen, basting the turkey, stirring gravy, checking temperatures. At 2 p.m., everything was ready. I called everyone to the table. The turkey was golden and perfect. The sides were steaming in their dishes. It looked like a magazine spread. "This looks amazing," Karen said. "Margaret, you outdid yourself. Thank you for having us, Jessica's mother said to her daughter. Not to me. Of course, Mom, Jessica replied. I wanted everything to be perfect this year. I noticed she didn't mention who had actually prepared the meal, but I stayed quiet. It was fine. I was just grateful to be included. We sat down. David was at the head of the table with Jessica beside him. I was squeezed at the far end between Jessica's teenage nephew, who was glued to his phone, and the wall. But it was fine. It was fine. David stood to say grace. Before we eat this amazing meal my wife put together, I cooked this meal, I interrupted quietly. Everyone looked at me. What? David asked. I cooked this meal. All of it. Jessica made the pies, but everything else was me. Jessica's face turned red. Margaret, is now really the time? I just wanted credit for my work, I said, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. That's all. You want credit? Jessica stood up, her chair scraping loudly. You want credit for doing the absolute bare minimum after living in my house rent-free for 6 months? I pay rent now, I corrected. $800 a month. Everyone at the table was silent, watching this unfold. Oh, please, Jessica scoffed. $800 doesn't even cover utilities. Do you know what our electric bill is with you here? Running space heaters in your room? Taking your long showers? My showers are 10 minutes. Jessica, Tom said carefully, maybe we should all just calm down and enjoy the meal. No, Tom, I'm tired of everyone tiptoeing around this. I'm tired of pretending it's fine that my mother-in-law has been squatting in my spare bedroom for half a year. Squatting? I repeated, the word hitting me like a punch. I'm not squatting. David asked me to stay, and you've overstayed your welcome by about 5 months, Jessica shot back. David, tell her. Mom, Jessica has a point, David said quietly, and I felt something break inside me. This was supposed to be temporary. Maybe it's time to finalize your plans to leave. I stood up, my legs unsteady. I'll leave tomorrow. Pack tonight, actually, Jessica said. I want you gone by morning. Jessica, that's my mother, Karen interjected. This is cruel. Stay out of this, Karen, Jessica snapped. You don't live here. You don't know what it's been like having her here, judging every little thing I do, making me feel like a guest in my own home. I have never judged you, I said. I've tried to stay out of your way, tried to make myself small and invisible in every possible. You shouldn't have to be here at all, Jessica shouted. You have your own house. You have money from Richard's life insurance. But instead of being independent, you decided to latch on to David and make yourself his responsibility. Jessica, that's enough, David's sister Karen said firmly, standing up. Margaret lost her husband. She needed support. That's what families do. She's had 6 months of support, Jessica countered. At what point does support become enabling? At what point does she take responsibility for her own life instead of making it David's problem? I'm standing right here, I said, my voice breaking. If you have things to say to me, say them to me, not about me. Fine. Jessica turned to face me fully. You are a burden. You have been a burden since the day you moved in. You take up space. You cost money. You make everything about you and your grief and your needs. I'm tired of it. David is tired of it. We want our life back, and we can't have that with you here. The room was dead silent. Even the teenagers had looked up from their phones. David sat frozen, not defending me, not defending his wife, just frozen. I cooked this entire meal, I said quietly. I've been up since 5 this morning. I spent 3 days preparing. I paid for the groceries. And you're telling me I'm selfish? That I make everything about me? You want a medal for cooking one meal? Jessica grabbed the plate in front of her, the china plate I'd carefully selected from her cabinet and arranged with the turkey I'd spent hours preparing. She threw it at me. The plate hit the wall beside my head, missing me by inches. Food splattered across the wall, across my hair, down my blouse. Gravy dripped onto the carpet. Pieces of turkey and stuffing fell to the floor. The plate shattered into a dozen pieces. "Get out," Jessica screamed. "Get out of my house right now." My hand went to my forehead. A piece of the plate had grazed me. My fingers came away bloody. Karen rushed to my side immediately. "Margaret, oh my God, you're bleeding." David finally moved. "Jessica, what the hell? You threw a plate at my mother." "She's fine," Jessica said, but her voice shook. "She's being dramatic." "I'm calling the police," Tom said, pulling out his phone. "That's assault." "No," I said quickly. "Please don't. I just want to leave." "Margaret, you're hurt," Karen insisted. "We need to at least get you checked out." "I'm fine. I just need to pack." I walked upstairs in a daze. Behind me, I could hear the explosion of arguments. Karen and her husband laying into Jessica and David. Jessica's family trying to defend her. David stuck in the middle, his voice weak and ineffectual. I packed everything I could fit into my 2 suitcases. Photos of Richard, my clothes, my books. Everything else would have to stay. I couldn't carry more, and I couldn't stand to be in that house another moment. When I came back downstairs 30 minutes later, half the guests had left. Karen and Tom were still there, waiting for me. "Margaret, you're staying with us," Karen said firmly, "for as long as you need." "Karen, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm telling you." Tom already made up the guest room. I looked at David. My son was sitting on the couch, head in his hands. Jessica was nowhere to be seen. "David," I said. He looked up at me. His eyes were red. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." "For what?" "For not standing up for you sooner. For letting it get this far. For choosing her," I finished. "Yes," he whispered. "I understand," I said. "She's your wife. You should choose her. But you should have told me months ago that I wasn't welcome. You should have been honest instead of letting her torture me." "I know. Will you forgive me?" I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, who'd let his wife abuse me for 6 months because confronting her was too uncomfortable, who'd sat silent while she threw a plate at my head. "Eventually," I said, "but not today." Karen drove me to her house. Her husband Tom followed in their second car with my suitcases. I sat in the passenger seat, dried blood still on my forehead, gravy in my hair, and cried for everything I'd lost: my husband, my home, my relationship with my son, my dignity. That night, in Karen's comfortable guest room, I finally pulled out my phone. I'd been ignoring it since leaving David's house. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, all from David. "Mom, please call me. Jessica's mother took her to stay with them. She's having a breakdown. Mom, I know I messed up. Can we talk? Karen says you're okay, but I need to hear your voice." I blocked his number. I wasn't ready. Maybe I'd never be ready. Karen brought me tea and sat on the edge of the bed. "Do you want to talk about it?" "Not really," I admitted. "I just want to sleep." "That's fair." "Margaret?" "Yeah?" "For what it's worth, you were never a burden." "Not to me, not to anyone who actually loves you. Jessica is cruel, and David is a coward for enabling her. He's still my son." "I know, but that doesn't mean he was right." I stayed with Karen and Tom for 3 weeks. In that time, I found a small 1-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood. It was affordable, close to a grocery store, and had a community room where seniors met for activities. It wasn't my house with Richard, but it was mine. David tried to visit twice. Both times I sent him away. I wasn't ready to hear his apologies or his excuses. I needed time to heal, both physically and emotionally. The cut on my forehead was minor, but it would leave a small scar, a permanent reminder of Thanksgiving 2024. Karen helped me move into my apartment. She bought me new dishes, new towels, helped me arrange furniture. On Christmas Eve, she invited me to her house for dinner. Real dinner, she said, where you're a guest, not the help. It was nice, quiet. Her teenagers asked me about Richard, and I told them stories that made them laugh. Tom carved the ham, Karen's. Daughter made rolls. I brought a store-bought pie, and nobody criticized me for it. Around 8 p.m., there was a knock on Karen's door. Tom answered it. David stood on the porch, looking haggard. He'd lost weight. His hair was messy. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Is my mom here? I'm sorry, David, but Margaret said she doesn't want to see you, Tom said gently. I just need 5 minutes. Please. Karen came to the door. David, this isn't the time. I need to talk to her. I need to apologize properly, then call her or write her a letter, but don't show up at my house demanding access to her. She gets to decide when and if she's ready to see you. Karen, she's my mother, and she's a person who you allowed to be abused in your home for 6 months. So no, you don't get to decide when you've apologized enough. She does. I watched this exchange from the living room. Part of me wanted to go to him. He was my son, my only child. But the stronger part of me remembered his silence at that Thanksgiving table, his weak defense, his choice to prioritize his wife's comfort over my safety and dignity. He's gone, Karen said, coming back inside. You okay? I'm okay, I said, and I meant it. 3 months later, I received a letter, not from David, but from Jessica. It was 3 pages long, handwritten on expensive stationery. In it, she apologized. She said she'd been in therapy since Thanksgiving and had been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder that manifested as a need for extreme control over her environment. She said she'd handled my presence in her home terribly and that I'd never deserved the treatment she'd given me. She said David had moved into their spare bedroom, that they were separated, seeing a marriage counselor, trying to determine if their relationship could survive what happened. She said she understood if I never forgave her, but that she needed me to know she was genuinely sorry. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. Maybe someday I would. Maybe someday I'd be ready to have that conversation, but not yet. David eventually stopped calling. I heard through Karen that he'd moved out, that he and Jessica were officially separated, that he'd started his own therapy to work through why he'd failed to protect me. Karen said he asked about me constantly, how I was doing, if I was happy, if I'd ever forgive him. Tell him I'm fine, I told Karen. And that's all. I don't know about forgiveness yet. That might take years, or it might never come. Right now, I'm focused on rebuilding my life, on creating a home that's truly mine, where nobody can make me feel small or unwanted or like a burden. I joined a book club at my apartment complex, made friends with other widows who understood loss, started volunteering at the local library. Slowly, quietly, I built a life that had nothing to do with being someone's mother or someone's burden. I was just Margaret, and that was enough. The scar on my forehead faded, but never fully disappeared. Sometimes I'd catch sight of it in the mirror and remember that Thanksgiving, the plate shattering against the wall, Jessica's face twisted in rage, David's silence. But mostly, I remembered Karen standing up for me when my own son wouldn't, Tom driving me to safety, the kindness of people who weren't obligated to care, but chose to anyway. That's the thing about family, I've learned. Sometimes the people who share your blood hurt you the most. And sometimes the people you choose become more family than the ones you were born into. Karen and Tom and their kids are my family now. David might be someday again, or he might not. Either way, I've learned I'll be okay. I'm 68 now. I live alone in my small apartment, and some days are lonely. I miss Richard with an ache that never fully goes away. I miss the son I thought I had, before I learned he had limits to his loyalty. But I don't miss that spare bedroom. I don't miss walking on eggshells. I don't miss making myself small. This year, I'll spend Thanksgiving at Karen's again. I'm bringing store-bought pie, and nobody will criticize me. I'll sit at a table where I'm wanted, where throwing plates isn't a possibility, where I can be myself without apology. And that, after everything, feels like something to be genuinely thankful for. If you've made it this far in my story, thank you for listening. If you've experienced something similar, know that you're not alone. Family dynamics can be complicated and painful, but you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, no matter your age or circumstances. Please leave a comment below, sharing your thoughts or your own experiences. Sometimes just knowing someone else understands can make all the difference. And please, subscribe to my channel and hit that like button. Sharing these stories helps others who might be going through similar situations feel less alone. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember that you are never too old to start over and choose your own peace.